Moving on to the next. A doctor wields more than knowledge in his profession. He must also master kindness, empathy, and compassion. Today's keynote address will be on medical humanities. I would like to invite the President of Ratnapura Clinical Society, Dr. Niranjan Disanayake, to invite the keynote speaker of the day.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And I think that video was a very good prelude to what Professor Disanayake is going to discuss with us today. And Arusha Disanayake is a professor in medicine and a specialist physician. He is the president of the Ceylon College of Physicians and was the president of the Gaul Medical Association in 2019. He is a regional international advisor for the Royal College of Physicians, United Kingdom. He is also the international editor of Clinical Medicine, the Journal of the Royal College of Physicians, UK. He is an associate member of the Royal School of Music and founded the Southern Symphonia, a musical ensemble which performs at medical concert as well as conducts music for healing programs. He also is a past finalist of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. It is indeed a pleasure to have you, Professor Disanayake, with us. And it's an honor for us for being here in person, traveling far away from Colombo. And we eagerly await your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Niranjan, for the very kind introduction. I traveled even further. I came from Gaul. A very good morning to all of you. It's a great honor to be the keynote speaker at such a prestigious clinical society. And I will share a few of my thoughts on how medical humanities could perhaps bridge some of the gaps we have from between patient-centeredness and the clinical excellence we practice. I have been a teacher in a medical school for about 17 years now. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out who a good doctor is, and this formed the basis of my induction address at the College of Physicians as well. Over the years, I've taught many. The range is very wide. The qualities are also very wide. For instance, the academic chair of these sessions, Dr. Anushka Ediravira, was my student in the medical faculty and was my registrar as well. And she is the epitome of the good doctor, exemplary doctor. And I confess, I also taught the doctor who robbed the payroll at the NHSL. He is also an undergraduate who learned from me. So what are the attributes of a good doctor? These are some of the things which I have put together. Your list may be different. One is we need to have technical excellence. By technical excellence, I mean our ability to take a history, do an examination, to do perfectly the procedures, etc. We need to have critical thinking, ability to see our way through complex problems using the knowledge. There are many who have the knowledge and the skills, but who are unable to really put it together to get to the patient's problem. We need communication skills in large amounts, and I'll delve a little bit about that a little later. We need resilience. Sri Lanka has been through the toughest period in our memory. It's our ability to withstand tough times, difficult times, and come out better than what we were. That is resilience. Not just to survive, but to thrive on it, to become better. And then, leadership. Now, somebody might think that one becomes a leader only when one becomes a professor or when one becomes a consultant. But you do lead at all stages. You might be a house officer who leads the team on the take, who attends to the patient and manages everybody. It might be the SHO who takes the leadership role at a different level. So we, within us, the nature of our job is we all play leadership roles at different levels. It is not just the director of the hospital or the consultant who is the leader. So we need to enhance our leadership skills as well. Right, let's look at communication skills in a little bit more detail. We need to obviously communicate with the patients and the carers. And we need to develop this quality of empathy. Empathy, in simple terms, means our ability to understand how people feel and think, the pain and the suffering, and the happiness also that somebody might feel. It's our ability to feel how somebody else who is seated in front of us feels. Then we need to go beyond empathy to become compassionate, where there is a desire, once we feel the difficulties of somebody, how they feel, to do something about it, to do what is in our best ability to make things better. It may not be to solve a problem, but it may be to improve a situation. Then, of course, this other little quality. I've often heard patients say, when I speak to this particular doctor, I feel that much better, even without treatment. And for long years, I wondered what this quality was, which made some doctors make patients feel better simply by talking to them. And I think after long years, I thought maybe this is what is described in the Satara Brahma Viharana as metta, like something like friendliness. It's how closely you can relate to the doctor, the patient can relate to the doctor. Some intangible quality, which for the lack of a better word, I put friendliness, but where they feel that they can relate to and discuss their problems to the content, the fulfillment of their heart. And then this is to do with the patients. Of course, your communication skills will extend to other interpersonal skills as well. Now, all of us need to be good team members. We cannot only be leaders, but we need to be team members as well. And we need to see our team is not merely our co-workers. We need to communicate well with them. But the administrators are also our team members. And then we go on out, and then the public are also in some ways our team members in our goal for health in a country. So we all work together. We do not work against each other. We do not antagonize each other. So that's a greater insight into what I feel are the realm of communication skills. Now, when we look at the science and the art of medicine, out of all the skills that I have listed, it becomes clear that science caters to technical excellence. But the other four, which I listed as being important, things like critical thinking, communication, resilience, leadership, they all form part of the art of practice of medicine. Some people call the sciences the hard skills, and they call the art the soft skills. These two phrases have come from the business world, hard skills and soft skills, and I'm increasingly recognize that there are many lessons that medicine can learn from the business world, and this is one of them. So we have adopted that. So we need to look at how do we enhance the art in medicine, the skills of art in medicine. Of course, it can be taught. It can be taught in courses. I was not taught communication skills as an undergraduate, but we do teach our undergraduates communication skills. And many of the others, now the CCP very recently conducted a medical leadership course in which the president of the society did was an exemplary participant who was very impressive the way that he discussed matters. So obviously it can be taught. The second, the hidden curriculum, part of the hidden curriculum is role modeling. we must remember that as the more senior that we get, our actions are being watched by those with us, and people model themselves on us. Now, communication skills, I told you, I was never taught. I'm generally considered a fairly good communicator at the bedside, and I lay most of that credit to a surgeon. The person whose house officer I was, Professor Mohan De Silva, and he is the one who showed me the glories of communicating well with patients, and those habits which I picked up as a house officer, I've developed on my own and carry on to this day. So it was a role modeling which helped me initially because no one taught me at that time. Then, of course, I propose that the subject of this talk, that if we engage with the humanities, we can perhaps develop the art of medicine. Now, what are medical humanities? If you look at the historical evolution, universities initially taught theology in all the universities. People went to Oxford and Cambridge to learn theology. That was the only subject that was taught. Then, of course, people felt that there was life beyond theology, and then they came up with humanities. All the other astrology, astronomy, the whole works, mathematics, etc. Everything that was non-theology was humanities, and subsequently along the way, the sciences broke off from the humanities, and we had theology took a backseat, and then we had the sciences and the humanities. Now, by sciences, they were mostly pure sciences, things like mathematics, pure sciences. But then the art that we practice is an applied science. We take a pure science and apply it into human beings who are part of a humanities group. So it is inevitable that we need to try to intertwine arts and the sciences in this quest. Therefore, medical humanities is the interdisciplinary study of science, of medicine, along with theater, art, literature, history, philosophy, sociology, anthropology, everything. So to make things a little clearer, we will look at some examples of how humanities has helped me to become perhaps a little better of a doctor. Now, this is, everybody's heard of Shehan Karunatilaka, and everybody is speaking of Seven Moons of Mali Almeida, but this is Shehan's first book, The Chinaman. It's a wonderful book, and I beg your permission to read from his book a paragraph. Give me a moment. He goes on to say, no one knows about this visit to Navasiri Hospital. Not Sheila, who has begun to notice my falling hair, my swollen fingers, and the rings under my eyes. Not Ari. Ari is his drinking partner, Sheila is his wife. Not Ari, who has remarked on how my hand shakes as I pour. Not even Kusuma, the servant, who wakes up every other morning to clean up my acidic, blood-stained vomit. The doctor is younger than my son and has a put-on smile that does not soften the blow. Mr. Karunasena, your liver is being destroyed and it will get worse. Karunasena is an alcoholic sports writer. At least I have my heart. My giggle is as pathetic as my attempt at humor. He ignores and begins scribbling. Can't you give me some pills? I can give you pills for the nausea and the fever. I can also refer you to our alcohol counselor. The doctor tears off a chit branded by a pharmaceutical company I have not heard of. The rest, uncle, is up to you. How much time? I keep my tone even and my eyes fixed, hoping the pup won't notice that the old dog is ruffled. If you stop drinking and start eating and exercise, uncle, you can bat for another 10, 20 years. The things they don't teach you at school. How to love, how to die, how to stage a dramatic comeback. Now, this is from the first page of this book. What it tells us is the underlying fears, the anxieties which are not disclosed by the patient and which goes unaddressed by the doctor. And Karunasena goes on to drink more. So this medical encounter has not brought about the expected result that we want. So these open our eyes to the way that we communicate our patients. Can this kind of book teach us medicine? Just as a by the way thing, in one of the pages in that, there is a phrase, I'll read that for you. And I no longer have a bottle to help me focus on my gaze. Of course, I see advantages. There are no more aches. My piss is yellow and my shit is brown, and not vice versa. Have you ever heard of a better expression of recovering alcoholic hepatitis? My piss is yellow and my shit is brown, and not vice versa. So I'm amazed how somebody could actually, an author could write this in a book. We look at art, this painting. This is a very famous painting, The Doctor, painted by Sir Luke Fildes, I believe is the pronunciation, in 1891. It hangs in the Tate Gallery, which is the National Art Gallery in UK. And it shows a very compassionate doctor attending to the son of a laborer. The son is sleeping in a makeshift bed and dying of typhoid. And this is pre-antibiotic era. There was so little this doctor could do, but he would attend to this patient. And it is that contact between the patient, the child and the doctor, which went on to epitomize the good doctor patient connection. I don't know whether it is visible here, but the parents are in the background. The father and mother. Mother is crying and the father is looking helplessly. Now, though doctors felt that this painting was about themselves, the good doctors, it was, and to this day, this painting inspires people like you and I to become better. This painting speaks about, brings about social realism of the times. Sir Luke Fildes actually painted, drew pictures for Charles Dickens' books, and Dickens wrote a lot on poverty. Now, there is the social problems that this child is having, the economic problems the child is having with typhoid is a result of poor sanitation, etc. So this painting went on to show that the society has to change. The doctor's child would not probably die of typhoid, but the laborer's son will. The societal change that was required. And that is how the NHS came about several decades later. And how the world has seen a dramatic drop in infant and maternal mortality. Everything can be related. Most of that can be related to improving social circumstances. So this painting, to me, speaks to me about the social responsibility that I have as a doctor as well. Though I work in a hospital prescribing medicines, I have a role in the community to make things better for society as a whole. We get on to poetry. You will not be able to read this poem. It doesn't matter. I just want to tell you who wrote this. This was written by a cardiologist called John Stone. Gaudius Igitur means to celebrate and rejoice. He wrote this for a medical school for students to sing, and that medical school continues to sing, rejoicing about at times of graduation. I just want to draw your attention to this part of this poem, and it goes on to say, "For there will be the arts, and some will call them soft data, whereas in fact they are the hard data by which our lives are lived. For everyone comes to the arts too late, for you can be trained to listen only for the oboe out of the whole orchestra. For you may need to strain to hear the voice of the patient in the thin reed of his crying. You will learn to see most acutely out of the corner of your eye, to hear best with your inner ear. This is the training that we need to understand our patients better. To hear with our inner ear and to see with the corner of the eyes the difficulties and the pains and the anxieties our patients are having. This photograph was given to me by a doctor. Some of you may know him. Dr. Himantha Atukorala is a rheumatologist and he's working in Mathur at the moment. A brilliant doctor. He's much younger than I am. This bone is from a skeleton discovered in Bellambethi Palace, which I believe is situated in Ratnapura district. Dr. P.P. Dharaniyagala, who was director of the National Museum, and I believe he was a commissioner of archaeology as well, he discovered 13 skeletons in around 1964, I think it was 1964, in Bellambethi Palace. And those skeletons have been carbon dated to Middle Stone Age, about 12,750 years before present. And those bones are there. They are for us to be seen in the museum has, behind the proper museum, there is another small museum that's called the National Museum of Natural History. And these bones are there in that museum. And Himantha, in 2017, when he visited, he noted that this female, 55-year-old female skeleton, this has been dated by paleontological methods, had an eroded femoral condyle, whereas other condyles were preserved. So Himantha's postulation is that this patient had severe osteoarthritis and would have been in pain and would have had a lot of disability at that time. Now it's very interesting. At that time, people were moving daily their locations that they were living, and they were taking with them a 55-year-old disabled woman in that community. She would have been a useless person to them in terms of food production, etc. But they cared for their elders, and they tried to support this woman in difficulty. A lot of questions arise, like, did she carry a stick to walk? Did she use some wooden brace? All of those questions remain unanswered. But this again shows our responsibility towards the weaker members of our society, the vulnerable segments of our society, that we have a moral responsibility to organize our health systems and our social systems to support people who are vulnerable, disadvantaged, and disabled. 12,750 years ago, our ancestors have done it, and it is incumbent upon us to do that. When Niranjan invited me for the talk, I asked Niranjan, why did you invite me to become the keynote speaker? It's usually very old people who get invited as keynote speakers, very senior, very profound people. I'm not one of them. And Niranjan said, you talk about this and you walk the talk, which I think Niranjan has been one of the greatest compliments that has been paid to me in my life, to be told that I walk the talk. So I thought I will include a little bit about walking the talk as well. Now I founded the Southern Symphonia, which is a very loose musical ensemble with my wife about 10 years ago in Goa. We have doctors, families, medical students. It's a very fluid thing, there's nobody fixed there. Some of you may have, I think Anushka has also performed in this. Yes, when she was a registrar. Yeah, so we used to go for SLMA doctors' concerts, and we used to give a show there. We were very popular there. Every year we've done a concert. But we've gone beyond that as well. We've actually done cultural items for academic sessions as well. The College of Urologists invited us to do academic sessions some years ago to do the cultural items. So anyway, this is our Southern Symphonia, at the palliative care center of the teaching hospital, Karapitiya. Every month, some of us get together, we go there and sing with the patients. We take some snacks for them, and then we sit with them and sing. We ask beforehand, are there any songs that you would like us to sing? So at times they also join us, and every month we go. So I have permission from them to use their photographs, to mention their names, anything. They're very supportive, and then that's part of my ensemble, medical students and various people who are performing. I will tell you briefly about 3 of the patients that I met there. One was a lady whose name I am unable to recall. She said she had sent a message through the nurses that she wanted from the Ektamge Unmada Situam song to be sung at that time. So we obliged. And then once that was over, she got up and said, I first heard this song at the time that I met my husband, my future husband. I was falling in love at that time, and we went to see this film. That is the most cherished memory I have. Now my life is very difficult. She's dying of a terminal cancer. And I want to visit those beautiful moments to keep my spirit going. I believe the technical term for that is reminiscence therapy. There is in cognitive behavior therapy something called reminiscence therapy. The psychiatrist might be able to better tell than I am, that reminiscence therapy. So and she stated that she would like that song to be played that day, on the day of her funeral. The second patient some of you may again know is Mr. Bandula Jayasekara, the late Mr. Bandula Jayasekara, who was editor of the Daily News, Sunday Times, and he was an ambassador as well. Bandula passed away about a year ago. Bandula was also spending time with us there. Bandula gave a list of 10 songs. And he said, look, my life is very difficult. It's very cold here. I'm unlikely ever to log into the internet, search these songs and listen. But you've given me an opportunity to listen to the 10 most loved songs of mine in one go. And that makes me happy. And his favorite was Viyogi Gayana by Neela Vikramsinghe. And we did that. And he said, I feel happy after a long time. The third is the father of a doctor, Dr. N's father. He had a cholangiocarcinoma, very ill. He went to the best doctors in Sri Lanka for that illness, but there was nothing much that could be done. And in his frustration, at one moment, he tried to jump out of the first story of the house to kill himself. Then, of course, he came to the palliative care center. We had a music program, and he said he's not really somebody who listens to music. He's not somebody who enjoys music. Not everybody enjoys music. Some people don't. But then he said he will listen from the room. He said, okay. He couldn't even give a list of the songs that he wanted. We sang, and then in the middle, he came with us, and he clapped, and he sat there and waited and said, I listened to music properly for the first time, and I think it's beautiful. Thank you. So those are little things that we've done to make lives a little better for our patients through the Southern Symphonia. My postulation to you is, we don't have to be singers or artists or writers to engage in medical humanities. There are only 2 preconditions. One is you must have the goodness within you to do good for humanity, to become a better doctor. We must remember that even in the concentration camps, the music most commonly played was Wagner and Beethoven. And some of those worst perpetrators of crimes against humanity were great opera fans. In the evenings, in the mornings, they would torture people. So, precondition is you have to have the goodness of the heart to do better. And I think all of us have that, to do better for our patients. Second thing is, All of us have some passion in humanities. Somebody might be interested in music, somebody might be interested in literature, somebody might be interested in film. It is to explore those and see how we can align that with what we are doing and see how we can bring those to improve our patient care. And the side effect of that will be we will feel happy. We feel happy when we engage with the humanities. We do very stressful jobs. Burnout is a major problem. Though it is not evidence-backed, I believe that engaging humanities and being happier is likely to make us less burnt out. But primarily, we can bring those to better patient care. Now, this is a quote from Anton Chekhov. Anton Chekhov wrote a lot, but this was never meant to be published. He had this very close friend, Grigorovich, to whom he used to write letters about the way he thought about things, the way he saw the world, and what he thought about what he wrote and what others wrote. And in that, he says to Grigorovich, his friend, the sensitivity of the artist may equal the knowledge of the scientist. Both have the same object, nature, and perhaps in time it will be possible for them to link together in a great and marvelous force which is at present hard to imagine. That is the marvelous force that we can create, intertwining our science with the humanities we possess. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for a patient hearing.
Thank you very much, Professor Disanayake, for that exceptional lecture. And we were convinced that you were the best person to do this, and I think now we are convinced more. So I think rather than questions, probably this eminent august panel of distinguished guests might have some comments regarding your presentation. So if you have any comments, there are academics here representing the University of Sabaragamuwa, and there are consultants, doctors, and students as well. So do you have any comments? So if you have any comments, you can just come to the mic and then pose that comment. Until they gather the thoughts, Professor Disanayake, let me just ask you a rather difficult question. When our students come to our faculties, they are the brilliance of that year. That means they have performed in the advanced level to the maximum level, so they have a very high IQ. And most of them, if you look at their performance in the universities, in the schools, probably some of them are head prefects. Most of them have done drama, sports up to the national levels. They are good singers, and they performed beautifully yesterday as well. But sometimes, after some time, when they pass out from the faculties, and after some time after that, we see that change happening. Do you see, you are involved in student teaching as well. What is going on?
Change in the sense their attitudes change, or their interest in humanities change?
Humanities also change,
right.
And at the same time, I think some of them retain their abilities and they enhance their abilities as yourself. But some of them, they go into oblivion. They forget what they have done.
Yes, because it's this dualism. There is a beautiful essay by C.P. Snow from 1950s. It's a very famous essay on two cultures. Because somewhere along the way, sciences and arts broke apart. And we live in completely different worlds. Artists would think of scientists, this is a fellow who has never even, seen read Shakespeare, anything like that. And the scientist would think this is a fellow who has no idea what the third law of Newton's is, what's his life like. So it's just that somewhere along the Niranjan, somebody needs to talk about bridging this gap. And that's what medical humanities is doing to medicine. We started in Ruhuna, and then of course it was very hard to convince that this is something important. But then, of course, after several years, Colombo took over, and Colombo has now established a Department of Medical Humanities. We don't have to have a department. It's wonderful to have I'm not saying to overcrowd the curriculum by incorporating other things into the curriculum, but certainly as a sort of parallel thing, we need to start thinking and make people believe that this is good to have. This is very good to have, and that you can actually bring the two together and make things better. Now, that is what I try to do with my wife Harshini by forming the Southern Symphonia. Rather than being in isolated corners, I think we should all get together to take forward this movement called medical humanities. We need to become more humane. Look, it's very simple. We practice the best technical medicine now. 10 years ago, we were nowhere close to this, even in Sri Lanka. But patients are more dissatisfied with us now than they were 10 years ago. Where lies the problem? So it is just that though we get technical excellence, we are unable to relate to the patient. And there are different ways of relating, and I'm just proposing that medical humanities is one way. And I forgot to mention, when I said all of us can't be singers, I mean, what I really want to say was all of us cannot be as good singers as perhaps Professor Neville Pereira is. That's what I meant to say, I didn't say. So, all of us need not be singers. To be honest with you, I can't write a line of poetry, but I'm deeply inspired by John Stone's poem. Art, that was the subject which used to always take my average down in class. But I get inspired by the doctor. I'm the worst singer in my family. But then I find music very inspiring. So what I want to say is you don't have to be a great musician or anything like that. But as long as you can appreciate the beauty of it, we'll try to bring that to our medical practice. A long answer to one question.
Yes, I think that covered most of the things that I think we had in mind as well. And thank you again for honoring us by your presence here. And it is a deep pleasure to have you here. And hope that you will enjoy the session in the hours to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm most grateful for you all to have invited me. Thank you so much.